Call this meeting of the Harlan Township Board of Trustees to order. As a reminder, the meeting is being audio and video recorded. Would you please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jenny, would you please read the minutes from the previous meeting?
Board of Trustees of Harlan Township met in regular session this 4th day, December 2024, at regular meeting place at 8276 State Route 132. Trustees Edward Prudziński, Kevin Kern, and Marcus Shelton present. Meeting called to order by Mr. Shelton at 7 p.m. Mr. Shelton asked all present to stand and say a pledge of allegiance. Minutes read from regular session November 20th, 2024. Mr. Prudziński made a motion to approve minutes as read, second by Mr. Kern. AC Mason reported engine 81 out of service and still out of service and received a $15,000 from the LOPE fund. Mr. Mason reported road department continues working on the State Route 132 maintenance building, installing new workbenches and shelves and running new air lines and reorganizing tools and equipment. Mr. Mason reported road department assisted with Christmas lights at Station 81 and have snow equipment ready. Mr. Mason discussed Larry Burchett looking into alternative repair methods for township. Mr. Burchett will work with Mr. Kern about repair methods and costs. Old business, Mr. Shelton discussed letter received from Mr. Bennett's counselor requesting to reconsider the board decision. Mr. Prudziński made a motion to deny reconsidering decision, seconded by Mr. Kern. New business, Mr. Prudziński recommended letting Larry Burchett attend the Ohio Township Winter Conference in 2025. Mr. Prudziński worked to get questions Jeff Watterson had from ADA requirements for Station 81 remodel. Mr. Prudziński made a motion for Township to hire Jeff Watterson as architect for Station 81 remodel, not to exceed $3,000 design costs to start process of remodel, seconded by Mr. Shelton. Ms. Williams discussed changing the appropriation amount within the general fund. Ms. Williams would like to increase the insurance benefits from $50,000 to $56,000 and reduce other expenses from $215,875.19 to $209,875.19 and change appropriation amount within the road and bridge fund. Ms. Williams increased insurance benefits from $85,000 to $91,000 and reduce small tools and minor equipment from $125,000 to $119,000. Mr. Shelton made a motion to hold organizational meeting, seconded by Mr. Kern. Mr. Shelton made a motion to offer health insurance for full-time employees and elected officials for 2025, seconded by Mr. Kern. Mr. Shelton made a motion to pay township trustees in accordance to Ohio Revised Code 200 times daily rate in 12 equal payments, seconded by Mr. Prudziński. Mr. Shelton made a motion to pay township fiscal officer in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code 12 equal payments, seconded by Mr. Kern. Mr. Shelton made a motion to appoint Mr. Prudziński as representative for the 2025 Warren County Regional Planning Commission, seconded by Mr. Kern. Mr. Shelton made a motion to appoint Mr. Kern alternative representative for the 2025 Warren County Regional Planning Commission, seconded by Mr. Prudziński. Mr. Shelton made a motion to hold township meetings the first and third Wednesday of each month starting at 7 p.m., seconded by Mr. Kern. Mr. Shelton made a motion to appoint Mr. Kern president of trustees for 2025, seconded by Mr. Prudziński. Mr. Shelton made a motion to appoint Mr. Prudziński vice president and trustees for 2025, seconded by Mr. Kern. Mr. Shelton made a motion to adjourn organizational meeting, seconded by Mr. Prudziński. Mr. Shelton made a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to consider employment dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee, seconded by Mr. Kern. Roll call, Mr. Prudziński, yes. Mr. Kern, yes. Mr. Shelton, yes. Mr. Shelton made a motion to adjourn executive session, seconded by Mr. Prudziński. Roll call, Mr. Prudziński, yes. Mr. Kern, yes. Mr. Shelton, yes. Mr. Mason discussed the fire EMS coverage with public safety consultant Steve Otterson. After discussion, Mr. Mason met with Steve Pegram to discuss interim fire EMS chief for township. Trustees each met individually with Mr. Pegram to discuss position. Mr. Mason is requesting township hire Mr. Pegram as intermittent Fire EMS Fire Chief for Harlan Township Fire and Rescue, part-time position with an annual salary of $44,000. Mr. Shelton made a motion to hire Mr. Pegram, seconded by Mr. Brzezinski. Mr. Shelton made a motion to authorize Township Administrator to complete necessary employment agreement for Chief Pegram. Mr. Shelton swore N.C. Pegram as interim Fire EMS Chief effective December 4, 2024. Community comments. Troy Couch has status of tornado warning siren at Whitaker Park not working. Mr. Mason stated that Mobilecom has been working to repair. Jesse Parson asked trustees about statement that was recently made documents are regularly signed without reviewing. Mr. Shelton stated that the board now has policy in place to allow 7 days to review levy-related paperwork prior to passing resolutions. Katie Cordry questioned why levy committee meeting started again if already had everything prepared and only needed to correct ballot language. Mr. Mason stated reviewing all options to see if anything needs to be changed. Ms. Cordry asked if minutes were taken at the committee meetings and if the list of committee members available. Minutes are taken during the meeting and during the meeting and list was provided in past of members. Bridget Ballard reported gave Ms. Williams new signed rental agreement, working on additional gym rental, and Bright Acres will have breakfast with Santa on December 14th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Chief Pegram discussed the fire levy and stated looking forward to working with committee. Chief Pegram plans to send email to surrounding chiefs to set up meeting possibly next Tuesday, December 10th, to discuss future plans of department. Melissa Greatorex asked for clarification about if had to contract neighboring departments for fire and EMS coverage would deplete fire fund in a matter of a few months. Mr. Mason stated this was looked into, however, not the plan at this time. Tanya Studer asked why a comment made from the board. Are there any other professional comments? Ms. Studer feels comments made from attendees of meeting are important. Ms. Bueller asked if fire department currently has paramedics. Mr. Mason explained that have a couple of paramedics and explained process for dispatching the fire and EMS runs. Mrs. Bueller asked if any members of the fire department recently resigned. Ms. Bueller thanked Mr. Mason for all of his work. Chief Pegram discussed the Ohio Revised Code only requires township to provide fire coverage to the township. However, most townships provide both fire and EMS coverage. Zach Demery stated at the time plans to continue as volunteer in the fire department. Chief Pegram stated that he plans to meet with each member of the fire department one-on-one to meet them and discuss concerns. Mr. Mason feels comfortable township has made the right decision to hire Chief Pegram and provide coverage for the township. Mr. Shelton made a motion to rescind appointment of Steve Mason and Jamie Whitaker as acting fire chief, seconded by Mr. Brzezinski. Troy Couch asked if where funds that would have been paid to Dusty Bennett will go after place on unpaid leave. Suggested they be paid to Steve Mason and Jamie Whitaker as acting fire chief. Mr. Mason stated pay would not be necessary. Mr. Shelton asked Mrs. Williams to explain how appropriations and fund balances are handled. Mrs. Williams explained that when funds are appropriated but not used, the amount stays in the total fund and then balance for the fund and would be carried over to the next year. Ms. Williams gave written financial report to trustees. Mr. Shelton made a motion to pay bills, second by Mr. Brzezinski. Correspondence reviewed. Mr. Shelton made a motion to adjourn, second by Mr. Brzezinski. Meeting adjourned at 8:16.
Do either of you have any corrections or additions?
I have none.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as read?
Motion to approve the minutes is read.
Second.
You.
Chief Pegram, are you ready for your report?
Already. So board, I've got a couple items for you tonight, but what I wanted to start off with, number one, will be the fire and EMS levy. I know there's been a lot of conversation about this prior to. Chief Mason has brought me up to speed on a lot of things, as well as several other members of the department. and I had the opportunity to meet with the levy committee this past Monday night and review what I'm going to show you tonight with them and answer some questions. And so just want to run through an overview of and the stance that I could have took is like, let's just kind of clear the air and start over. If we're looking at this as a brand new project, a brand new levy, what we're going to do in 2025, what are my recommendations and looking at the organization. So Steve's going to follow along for those watching online.
I tried very hard.
So the current fire and EMS levy generates around $460,000 a year. The remainder of our funding comes from a combination of grants, fundraisers, donations, and EMS billing. Currently, there are 3 fire and EMS levies, one that was passed in 1990, one that was passed in 92, and one passed in 2004. So the voters of Harlan Township have approved 5.5 mils at the polls, but currently, based upon the value of property in the township increasing over time, that millage goes down and adjusts. So we're currently have an effective millage of 2.11 mils based in 2023. 2024 reevaluation, and all that's coming out in early 25. The auditor's office will not have those final numbers until January. So we expect the millage effective rate currently in Harlan Township to be below 2 mils. And all 3 of those are continuous levies. Just wanted to give a real quick comparison about our neighbors around us. Obviously have very different populations, very different dynamics, but are all trying to provide fire and EMS service. So Hamilton Township, obviously largest population, has a budget of around $5.5 million. And currently we're at the bottom of the list at $588,000 and some change. If we were to approve a levy this year at the 3.5 rate that we're recommending, it would put our budget at $1.4 million. So still a little bit low or below Salem and Goshen, but obviously population demographics, there's a lot of factors to that. But just wanted to show people what the communities around us and also the communities that are currently providing us mutual aid, what their budgets are comparatively. So current fire and EMS is almost completely volunteer. We have a part-time interim chief. We have a part-time assistant chief who also serves as township administrator. We have a part-time volunteer recruitment and retention coordinator. That position is funded primarily by a grant. Volunteer assistant chief, and then that leaves about 45 volunteer firefighters, EMTs, paramedics on the department answering calls. Currently, the issue is the volunteer fire and EMS model can't keep up with the request for service. Not just a Harlan Township problem. This is a problem from Maine to California, from Washington State to Florida. The state of Ohio recently, the governor tasked the state fire marshal to create a task force to look at the volunteer fire and EMS problem in Ohio. And that task force completed a report with recommendations. I just screenshotted some of the stuff from that report as well as some of the headlines all over Ohio, where you'll see, a lot of departments are struggling with funding, with the lack of volunteers, staffing shortages, things like that. I think what was interesting for me is looking at their task force recommendations. There's 5 recommendations that they're telling volunteer departments like us to do. 4 of those 5 we've already implemented in Harlan Township through the SAFER grant. So we're already doing a lot of things that they're now telling people this is what you need to do. So the fact that we're already doing those things that are recommended and we're still having problems and issues with staffing our department with volunteers, just I think is a testament to the period of time that we're in and how things have changed with volunteers in general, not just in fire and EMS. So looking at the organization, I think it's time that Harlan Township starts to look into transitioning to what is referred to as a combination fire and EMS agency. That would be a mix of volunteers, paid per call personnel, some part-time and maybe even some full-time personnel. The goal is to guarantee immediate response of a paramedic-equipped ambulance to the residents of Harlan Township. Almost everything that this levy is going to pay for is going to be EMS related. It's the majority of our calls. It's probably what the most of the residents worry about the most, is quick and efficient emergency medical care when somebody's having a medical emergency. It will also help reduce response times for all fires and other emergencies throughout the township. and it will lessen the burden on the volunteers. By lessening the burden on the volunteers, that will allow them to focus on the more major emergencies and training, and through that, improve service delivery to the entire community. This information came to me from Auditor Matt Nolan. We did ask him to run the numbers for a 5-year levy, 3.5 mils. That 3.5 mil levy currently is estimated to bring in a little more than $863,000. Again, he stated that he won't have the final estimate until January, but that screenshot there is from his office directly, showing a 3.5 mil levy currently would generate a little over $863,000. Cost per $100,000 of appraised property value would be approximately $122.50 a year, or $10.20 a month. Average Harlan Township home, this is per the census data, not from the auditor's office, is currently sitting at about $305,000. So a home appraised at $305,000 would pay about $368 a year, or $30.66. So if we were to proceed, first meeting in January, we will have to approve a resolution of necessity. We do have a copy of that tonight for the board to review from the prosecutor's office, so we can easily meet that 7-day requirement to review it. We have a couple weeks before our first meeting in January. And then the second meeting, we'll have to bring back a resolution to proceed. All that then goes to the Board of Election. It has to be the Board of Election certified by February 4th. We would then run a levy campaign in February and March, and have the May 6, 2025 special election in Harlan Township. One of the things that's really important is, okay, we're asking for money, but what are we using the money for? What's going to be the benefit to the community? So I'm looking at the organization and how we reorganize it as a combination department, and specifically how do we reorganize to ensure that we're staffing an ambulance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So what I'm proposing is that you continue to have the part-time fire and EMS chief over the organization, and then you split the personnel into basically 2 divisions. The EMS division, we would look at hiring a full-time EMS coordinator, not really set on the title or anything like that, but somebody who's going to be in charge of everything EMS, and a lion's share of what we do every day is EMS. So everything from protocol, policies and procedures, EMS equipment, EMS vehicles, drugs, supplies, protocol, Q&A, run reports, EMS billing, EMS training, continuing education, all that would fall under this person, as well as all the paid personnel that we would have to hire to staff the ambulance. That person would supervise those people. They would hire them, onboard them, train them, handle the scheduling, call-offs, all those types of things that happen when you bring on paid staff into a combination fire and EMS department. And then under there would be the part-time EMTs and paramedics that we would hire, and also the paid per call volunteer EMTs and medics that we currently have would continue to fill in open shifts, or when there was a call off or holidays or whatever that may be, as well as we still would operate a second ambulance. So the first ambulance would be staffed with part-time paid EMTs and paramedics. The second ambulance would continue to be staffed by our paid per call volunteer personnel. And then on the fire side, we would have the volunteer assistant chief, and then our volunteers paid per call personnel working out of station 81 and 82. Make sense? Again, the priority of the levy and the priority of everything we're looking at right now is staffing that ambulance 24/7, 365. In looking at the EMS division and hiring that full-time coordinator, 125,000 is a budget number, but you'll see the asterisk there. One, that's not salary, that's salary plus benefits, plus pension, plus workers' comp, plus Medicare, all the things that we have to pay for a full-time employee. The other point I want to make is currently we have a grant through the federal government for recruitment and retention. Part of that grant pays for a volunteer or a recruitment and retention coordinator, $20,000 a year. So my recommendation is if we hire this full-time person, part of their responsibilities would also be overseeing that recruitment and retention grant, and we could offset $20,000 of their salary for the next 2.5 years with that money as well. So it helps pay for it. We would then have to work on hiring probably 12 to 15 part-time EMTs and paramedics. They would work 24/7, 365 with 12 and 24-hour rotating shifts. Their primary duty would be to staff that first out paramedic ambulance. They could also potentially provide some fire duties, as well as maintenance on the station, maintenance on the vehicles, fire inspections, public education, outreach, anything that we need to do throughout the normal day. And really, what we're trying to drive home is this levy and the staffing plan will provide immediate response to medical emergencies. 1 minute or less out the door with a paramedic ambulance compared to what we currently have, which sometimes we're out the door in a minute, but sometimes it's up to 15 minutes as we're waiting for volunteers to respond from home to the station and then respond to the scene of the call. So greatly enhancing and improving our paramedic service to the community. And I didn't get this question, but I was concerned that I would. So why not just hire full-time people? One paramedic ambulance staff with part-time people costs you about $525,000 a year in pay and benefits. One paramedic ambulance staff with full-time would cost you over $800,000. So that's why we don't do it. It would be very, very expensive. It would use up all the levy funds and then some. Not saying that someday we may not have full-time staff, but I don't think that is very soon in our horizon. I think it's a normal process for an organization to go to volunteer to part paid eventually to full-time. But I think the full-time part of this conversation is probably 2 or 3 levies down the road at least. I would recommend that we start paying all of our supervisors, what we call supervisors in the department. So our chiefs, some are paid, some are not currently. The captains and lieutenants get run pay, but they don't get any additional pay for their supervisory responsibilities, their areas of responsibility that they oversee all the time they put in at the station. So just taking a very simple model of if you paid the chief $48,000, then you paid the assistant chief $36,000, then the captain's $24,000, and then the lieutenant's $12,000 a year. We're currently paying out about $156,000 a year. We're paying out about $104,000 a year currently with our current system. So this would just increase that by $52,000. I think people that are responsible and are supervisors and running command on scenes deserve some compensation. We would then look at our paid per call firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics. These are the people that are currently our volunteers that get reimbursed once a year for all the calls they make. We would switch to a model where they get paid an hourly rate for runs and training. Total cost I estimated based on the average number of people responding to calls, as well as the average number of people attending training, would be about $152,000 a year, which is an increase of about $62,000 over our current reimbursement program. The other thing that I didn't factor into this and thought of after the fact is I based those numbers off of our current response to every emergency. If we have paid people staffing the first out ambulance, several hundred calls a year go away and are not burdening our volunteers. So this number actually would probably go down. Does that make sense? So to summarize, on the staffing plan, we would convert the part-time assistant chief's position to a full-time EMS chief. We would keep the volunteer assistant fire chief's position. We would change the captains and lieutenants from paid per call to part-time. We would hire part-time firefighter, EMT, paramedics, a minimum of 2 per day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We would create a pay scale for our paid per call fire and EMS volunteers. And as a result of doing all that, we would guarantee a staffed first out ambulance for Harlan Township. We would enhance staffing and capabilities of our pay per call volunteers, and we would have quicker response times to emergencies township wide. So that's the staffing part. I know there was a lot of talk also about equipment. So staffing is our #1 priority, but we can't ignore all the other stuff, which is buildings, vehicles, equipment, and training. And I'm looking at the organization and how can we be more efficient? What models are out there to do that? So just looking at the current fleet, we currently have 2 fire engines, 3 fire tankers, 3 brush trucks, 2 ambulances, and 5 staff cars. I think everybody has seen, heard, and experienced what has happened due to our economy. pre and post COVID, a fire truck that was $500,000 in 2020 is now upwards of $1 million. The same with ambulances, $250,000 in 2020, they're now going for $380,000. A few departments are over the $400,000 mark for a new ambulance. So the cost of everything, I guess, is my point, is going up and going up significantly, which is a problem for us. It's a problem for us because this levy plan does not include money for capital improvements. It's basically money for staffing to guarantee an ambulance. This is a snapshot of our fleet. The vehicles in red are vehicles that are already overdue for replacement based on national standards. Now, I do understand that national standards are basically an average. So, for example, if the national standard to replace a fire engine is 20 years, Cincinnati is going to probably replace that truck in 10 because they're much more busy. And departments like us, where we're a little bit slower and don't have as many runs, we may be able to stretch that truck out 25 to 30 years. But we do have a whole bunch of vehicles that are already over the recommended replacement date. We have several more that will be within the next 24 months. So that list is just growing. It's more of a long-term concern that I have, that we're going to have to address this at some point. But I think one of the ways we can address that is you'll notice some blanks in the far right column. So there's some vehicles that I'm not recommending that in the future we replace. And rather than replace an engine and a tanker, we would buy one truck that's an engine tanker that can do both jobs. So through doing some of those more, how can we be more efficient as a fire and EMS department? By having less vehicles in the fleet that can do more jobs, multi-purpose vehicles, will reduce the number of drivers we need, the amount of training we need to do on the trucks, tires, oil, fuel, maintenance, repairs. You just reduce all these other ancillary costs also. And I've had great success in doing that with other organizations, both through being a fire chief and also through my consulting work. So again, this is not going to get addressed in our 5-year plan with this levy. There just isn't enough money to do that. We would have to ask for a much larger levy, but just know that I am looking at this and we will continue to bring you some information on how we address the big capital items in the future. We can't ignore them. Other items that we need to look at over the next 10 years to replace things like cardiac monitors, which are extremely important, self-contained breathing apparatus, power lift cots often are purchased with the ambulance, but that adds $60,000 to the price of a $380,000 ambulance. Probably why some departments are already up over $400,000. Jaws of Life, we're going to talk about it in a minute because we have some issues there that we didn't know about a few days ago. But just to recap, so the request on the table is a 5-year, $3.5 million. It'll generate a little more than $863,000 for 2026 through 2030. Cost for $100,000 appraised value, that's a typo, $122.50. And what will it do for us? It will guarantee a staff paramedic ambulance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It will enhance our paid on-call fire and EMS response, and it'll help us plan for some capital. And then I broke down for you specifically, that's what the new revenue would be, and that's how we would spend the money, so people can see exactly what I'm talking about. Of course, all these are guesstimates at this time, but I'm anticipating we would have a surplus at the end of the first year of about $96,000. And we would take that $96,000, allow it to carry over for a couple of years, and probably in year 5 of the levy, we would look at replacing an ambulance. But probably the only big ticket item that comes out of this levy would be an ambulance. There'll be other smaller items throughout the 5 years, but if we're looking at big purchase fleet vehicles, we'll buy an ambulance. But we won't be able to buy that ambulance until year 4 or year 5 as we save money through the first 4 or 5 years. That make sense? Questions on that?
May I have any questions for the chief?
I did meet with the levy committee on Monday at the end of my presentation on Monday, and I went into a little bit more detail on a few slides. The consensus was that they liked it and that they support us moving forward. So there was no one in the room that said no or come back with something different too much. I think there was really good consensus. Steve was there, and was there as well. So I think we had good support moving forward. There's no action for the board to take tonight. We did give you a copy of the resolution that would need to be approved in January, at your first meeting in January. Well, for now, it's just a review of that document.
All right. Thank you.
If you're ready for me to move on, I will, but if you have questions, I'll hold up.
You guys have any questions?
I have. If you guys don't have any. So it has to be, I think, in one of the first slides you said, the 2 meetings in January, correct? That this has to be reviewed?
Correct.
There's only 1 meeting in January?
Gonna work.
We're gonna do that tonight.
Okay, all right, that was discussed at the last meeting, it's like, there's only one,
Yep.
I was going on the first. Okay, that's
Yep.
fine,
There's gonna be 2,
okay.
I think.
Thanks, checking.
Levy wise? All right, so rescue tools. It was reported last meeting that the township got a load grant for, I believe, $15,000. We also received a load grant a year ago for $12,000. None of that money has been spent yet. In meeting with the officers and members of the department, we were looking at starting to make the transition to newer technology with our rescue tools, to battery technology, battery powered tools. It's pretty much the standard in the industry anymore. What we have is the old gas powered hydraulic rescue tool. So you have a gas powered or an electric powered pump. Then you have hydraulic hoses that connect from the pump to the tools. So it's a very time consuming, a lot of pieces and parts, basically 3 pieces of equipment to run 1 tool. Gas, oil, hydraulic fluid, it's messy. There's a lot of maintenance that goes in that, and battery technology is, as I think we all know, is amazing. And most of the departments in our region have already made the switch to battery powered tools. However, we were just thinking of buying 1 tool so we could start making that transition using the grant funds. Since then, we had a failure of the hydraulic pump on Engine 81, which runs our hydraulic rescue tools. And after a day and a half of having repair people on site, we've basically been told that that power unit is deadlined. They do not manufacture the parts for it anymore. It does not work. So that's a big problem when you have hydraulically powered tools and you don't have a hydraulic pump. We do have a portable pump as a backup, but that portable pump only allows us to run 1 tool, and often on an extrication, you're using 2, 3 tools at a time. So it limits our capability of doing auto extrication, for example. I realize I've only been here 2 weeks, but in that 2 weeks, we had 4 fire runs that I would call critical runs. And one of those was an auto accident with a subject trapped in the vehicle on State Route 28. So we use these rescue tools on a regular basis. It's a very important tool that we carry. So kind of rebooted and said, if the plan is to move towards battery powered extrication tools, we have $27,000 of load grant funding that was originally earmarked for this project to completely replace the set of tools on Engine 81. That would be battery powered spreader, battery powered cutter, battery powered combination tool, battery powered rams, and all the attachments and pieces of parts that go to that would be $47,459. So my recommendation tonight is that we use the $27,000 from the load fund, and then the fire company fund that we manage has enough money to make up the additional $20,459. So our recommendation is that we would approve a motion to purchase battery powered hydraulic rescue tools from Howell Rescue Systems in the amount of $47,459. $27,000 of that being funded by the township through the load grant already received, and the remainder would be paid through that fire company checking account that we maintain, which is essentially money from donations, fundraisers, things like that.
Did you get all that, Jenny? I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
It'd be quicker golf though, the battery operated and stuff. I mean, you don't have
It's
to cook everything.
great technology.
Less manpower.
Yeah, 1 person, 1 tool. Thank you. I mean, we vote? We did vote.
We get
Yeah, we
Okay, good.
take care of it.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda for me is the EMS grant was reported, I believe, last meeting or maybe the meeting before, commonly referred to as the seatbelt grant. So some of the money that all the police officers and troopers write seatbelt tickets throughout the year. That money gets put in a pot, and then that money is distributed out to EMS agencies. So we are requesting tonight to spend that money, total of $4,220.98 on IM injectors, airway mannequin, airway pediatric mannequin, and an IV arm. Those are all different products that would be used to enhance our training program. So whether we're teaching an EMT or an advanced EMT class at Harlan Township or just doing continuing education training, all that equipment would be used to enhance our EMS training program. And again, it's 100% grant funded. So the motion before you, if you would be the motion to approve the purchase of EMS supplies and training equipment from Boundtree Medical, utilizing the Division of EMS grant funds in the amount of $4,220.98.
Notice the shipping is blank on that. Do you know what the cost of it?
We don't yet.
Want to do a motion not to exceed 5,000?
That would be fine, sir.
And I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of EMS supplies and training equipment from Boundtree Medical, utilizing the Division of EMS grant funds in an amount not to exceed $5,000. Second.
And then the last couple items are just Engine 81 is back in service after extensive repairs, and I know you're all aware of that. It was quite expensive and much longer than we anticipated. Brush 81 is out of service currently for repairs. I did meet last Monday with all the mutual aid chiefs of all of our surrounding communities. Had a really good conversation with them. I shared with them sort of like where we were at as an organization, where we were headed. They have some grave concerns about the amount of times we provide, or we call them mutual aid. Currently, our mutual aid is not very mutual. They help us, but we don't help them because we can't always guarantee the staffing. But the consensus was they're here to help. I asked for a little bit of patience and a little bit of grace. The consensus of that meeting was as long as Harlan Township is moving forward with a plan and shares that plan with us, and they're happy to help. But they also cautioned us that that help's only going to last so long. At some point, because they're taking resources out of their town that their taxpayers pay for to provide us a free service through the mutual aid agreement. But it's not really mutual aid because we're not providing it back to them. That at some point they would have to start charging for those services. The very basic numbers that Administrator Mason and I have looked at, if we were to pay our neighbors to provide that level of service for us, it would exceed the value of our current budget. So we would be out of money in 1 year. So we can't let that happen. So that just reinforces the need of the levy. They're willing to help, but that's going to be a different conversation if we don't pass the levy. So we just need to be prepared for that. Did meet with all the officers and the membership at a membership meeting, officers meeting, and I basically outlined my priorities for the organization. Those priorities are: number one, make runs. The most important thing we do is providing fire and EMS, and the way we provide fire and EMS is making runs. So quite a few people came up afterwards or met with me one-on-one and are committed to, doing more. And I think that's going to be great, and it's going to take everybody doing more to get us over the hump. Number two priority is attend training. If you do something that's a perishable skill or something that could get you hurt or killed, you need to train on it. So I'm encouraging everybody to attend training that we have every month. And then number three is obviously we need to pass a levy. But I told them, let me worry about that for a while. I'm the new guy. Let me take the hits and work on this a little bit. I've got quite a bit of experience working on levies and levy committees. And quite frankly, I don't want our volunteers stressed out about trying to pass a levy. I want them to worry about making fire and EMS runs and attending training. So put that burden of passing a levy on me. So that's my report.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Steve, you ready for the administrative report?
Yeah, two things I left off. I was joking that I printed some stuff off for Chief Kegrum before I left, and I forgot to print my stuff off, so I had to run back up last minute and add a few things in. But for the meetings in January, I would like to propose that we just scoot those back a week from the normal. Normal would be on the 1st, which was Wednesday. I'd like to just move those 1 week, which is I should have had dates, I think it's the 8th, right, 8th and 15 days later, 14 days later.
Would then have to be considered special meetings, since our meetings are on first and third Wednesdays.
Yeah, you'll schedule, you'll notice a special meeting.
Okay.
Keep in mind too, when you adopt your first resolution, your resolution to certify or to ask the auditor to certify the amount of revenue, the auditor has 10 days to get back to you, so you might want to leave him the 10-day window before your next.
What date you have it?
So we just scoot it back and do the second set of the first Wednesday, so the first and third, we do second and fourth Wednesday. There's an extra Wednesday.
27th.
Same time.
Sure.
7 p.m.
You'll take care of putting that on the
will.
website, right? Changing it to special for the 8th and 22nd.
Do that.
Thank you. Was I supposed to on this?
My second one is coming back to Engine 81. I had gotten the approval initially. Jeff had talked to Atlantic to get a rough estimate of what they thought we would be looking at price-wise, and that number was $8,000. You guys approved $8,000. Throughout the process of repairs, Jeff was in contact with them regularly to try to get an update. They found some other things wrong when it was there. It had a fuel tank replaced, which was quite expensive. So throughout that, we kept asking for updates on price and really didn't get good, consistent updates on where they were price-wise. They haven't sent if they sent us a email copy of the invoice, but not, they typically mail us an invoice. We've not received that yet that I've seen. But that price ended up being $27,000 and change. So we went very quickly from $8,000 to $27,000. And we were not made aware that it was had jumped that high. So I guess I'm going to ask Jenny and you guys how you want to proceed with that. We are going to be getting this bill. I know T. Pigram's going to reach out to and make some contact with them, but it's not going to go from 27 back to 8, I'm sure. So about them, and I know he's going to make contact with them just about keeping us up to date. They're supposed to have a new system that's coming into place that's going to allow updates throughout the repair process so that we have a better idea when these prices do go from, we think it's going to be 8 to, the number that Jeff had was, well, we think we think we're at 10 or 10-ish. And then it was like, well, we're over 20, and then it's 27. You were closer to 30 than the start. So I don't know how to address this, currently without making, contact with them and just making them aware, which they deal with mostly all government agencies, as far as keeping us up to date on what it's going to cost. So I would assume, Jenny, we need another motion to allow that to, and I don't remember if you have the exact number.
I thought it was not to exceed 8,000 on the first one, right?
It was, yeah. That's the first one's definitely not to exceed
Rescind that one
8,000.
and then do a new one, right?
Yeah, I would say.
Just rescind it.
Yeah, do you have a contract with
Look into it.
With
They're
them.
just doing the repairs.
Yeah, they're doing repairs. So we sent it up there for some unknown repairs, some unknown costs. It was, we had some things we thought were leaking. Fuel tank was possibly leaking. We didn't know for sure. And then as they started looking into tearing it apart, actually getting the engine torn apart, they found more things along the way. And there just wasn't great communication as they were finding things. Hey, this is going to go up exponentially in cost for this repair. And then when the repairs were finished, the truck sitting back in the bay again, it was, well, we ended up being much higher than what. And I think the initial number was just a spitball. I think it could be.
It was just me spitballing it because
Yeah,
I
it was-
had no idea.
Yeah, it was just, we think this is going to be this much and let's start there. And then it went up, without really notification from them on the cost.
So you approved an expenditure not to exceed $8,000.
Correct.
Now your expenditure is at 27.
Change. Yes, I remember that. I can pull it up.
Yeah, I mean, you would amend your motion to expend and maybe in the future try to get
it's hard to get because they don't know what they're gonna
I
find.
don't remember who made
We've
that
had
issue.
contracts in the past and we still got stuck
You know,
with the new truck that we ordered.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it becomes different with this. If you have like, like a passenger vehicle, the manufacturers have a set rate. Like if you go in to have an air conditioning compressor replaced, they pay, it costs this. Like no matter if it takes the tech a day or 8 days, they charge you the same. With custom fire apparatus and machinery,
You can't get them to nail down.
because they don't know, right? They don't,
Diagnostic
yeah,
costs.
yeah.
No two trucks are exactly the
Yeah.
same, right?
Yeah, I get that, but
That's how you get to some kind of.
I don't like it, but it's pretty common.
yeah,
The conversation we're gonna have is that if we tell you you're approved for 8, you can't go over 8 without getting approved.
yeah.
And reaffirming. And if we have that problem again, we'll look for a different vendor.
Are they the only game in town?
They are not.
They're not.
Okay.
There's options.
Yeah, so you can amend your previous motion, or you can rescind it and do a new motion. Either way works.
I don't remember who made the motion or when that was, so why don't we just resend it?
Well, I mean, I couldn't even tell you when the motion was made without looking.
Right.
Long ago? Can you remember how long ago we did that?
Why don't we make a motion to add to it?
We just added things. We had
Can we just add to it?
You can amend it.
Yeah, that's an amendment.
Let's
To
just,
28, 27 plus,
it's, yeah, just
so
do
add $20,000.
Make it
Make a
even.
motion to add
28,
$20,000.
not to see 28, 'cause it was 27,000 and some exact change, which I can't remember off the top of my head.
Are you sure that's gonna be?
28,000.
Yes. 28,000,
I
yes.
think that's the invoice.
Yes, it is. It's 27,000. And again, I apologize, I don't have it.
Because I don't wanna come back again.
We have it. Yeah, we have these, yeah, so we have just, they basically took a copy of it and in a PDF and sent it over to me. We haven't actually, we get those bills, paper form still from them, the actual invoice comes.
They act like it's gonna be emailed from now. I understood.
I need to call their billable, accounts and see how that's going to be done, because historically it's been paper, so.
I do wanna talk to you about.
You guys take care of it now.
Can we add additional $20,000?
Amend the $8,000.
To include an additional 20,000?
Yeah.
That way we're not.
Yep.
Yep.
We don't have to negate the other one.
Yep.
Make a motion, we amend the original motion for $8,000 to add
To
an
make it
additional
available.
$20,000
On engine 81.
on engine 81.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All right, I keep moving. Road crew did get a culvert put in with weather being good yesterday, on Starkey Road. They've been doing a lot of soft projects with the weather being cold and rainy. They have been working in some ditching, when it's on nice days as they can do that. Still looking into possible replacement for the boom mower going into next year, still thinking about some different options. So I hope to have some, pricing to you, some recommendations early next year. Kind of how much it snows, how much time Road Crew and I have to sit down and kind of go through some things. Also working with Unified Technology to upgrade the IT system and the phone system to Engine 81, as well as the maintenance building. It's all tied together up there. We've had issues with our server. The server, I believe they told me, was put in there in 2012 and is no longer functioning properly. We've had issues with printing, being able to use the Wi-Fi. They came up a week or so ago and kind of band-aided it back together. So we did get a quote today. That we're going to meet again with Tyler from Unified to get some clarification on some things. But we will be coming again next year with some recommendations for the upgrade at 81. Had a pretty busy week or so, 10 days with Chief Pegram getting everything set up with his different accounts. And I think we still got a few to go, but we've gotten access to quite a few things over the past few days. And the last thing I have is a retirement letter. And I'll start with the letter. It is short and sweet. It says, as many of you are aware, I will retire from my full-time job at Harts after serving him for over 42 years. It is with mixed emotions that I announce my retirement with Harlan Township Fire and Rescue as well. I'm very proud to have been a member of Harlan Township Fire and Rescue over the years and proud to serve with our current and past membership. Please keep up the good work and stay safe. I will continue to be a supporter of the Harlan Township Fire and Rescue Department. My official retirement date will be December 31st, 2024. And that is from Assistant Chief Jamie Whitaker. So first, I guess I'll ask for a motion to accept his retirement on December 31st, 2024.
I'll make the motion.
Just a few things there that so those of you who know Jamie, he is not one for wanting accolades or parties or so. He talked to me a couple months ago, said he was thinking about doing this. He knew he was retiring from Hearts for most of the year. And I tried to talk and say, will you announce something before the Christmas party? And he said, absolutely not. I think he actually told me hell no was his official answer. And he said, if you buy me a plaque, I will kick your butt. So that's the language that he used, but he said, I don't need a plaque. I don't need a party. I hate parties. And basically threatened bodily injury if I threw him a party. So I did say, when he gave me the letter for tonight, I said, do you care if I say a few things? That as long as I'm not there, you can say whatever you want, as long as it's nice. Jamie he joined the department in 1980. And I had initially written up some things that sounded like a funeral speech. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing it. That sounds terrible. It was much too formal. So, he has done a ton for the fire department. Again, never really asking for any kind of, anything. He showed up and did his job. And so it'll be definitely different for me. He's been the assistant chief since I was a kid. So again, going to miss him greatly. So if you see Jamie, if he'll let you, thank him for what he's done for the fire department over the past
44 years.
44, because he joined the same year as Jeff, 1980. So
I'm sure it'll be 45.
Yeah, when you look at the board now, the plaque at Station 81, I think there's only about 5 or 6 people in that original section from 77 to 2000 that are still active with the fire department. So losing another one there. So I would encourage everybody when they see Jamie, shake his hand, thank him for what he's done. He's not going to like it, but do it anyway. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, Steve. You guys have any questions? Old business, Ben. Well, certainly, I have no. Steve? Jenny?
No.
New business, Ed?
I do feel that, I know I'd like to have some recommendations from the trustees, if you have any for the remodel. I know Steve's kind of bloated a lot of the water. When I read more information, it's kind of, everything's changed.
Oh, really?
So do you have it, if you do have any recommendations? Well, I'm trying to gather more information. I thought we would have a little bit, be a little further along than what we are, but like I said, I think there's more things out there that are coming to the forefront we need to consider before I have them redrawn. So if you have any that's
like, are you changing rooms, all offices?
Yeah, I think we kind of.
That would be, I would have the officers and stuff kind of look at that.
Yep.
Because you need.
So I need to gather more information, and I think it's going to be a little larger scope.
Right.
What we had kind of planned and had in mind is kind of changing, I think, now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I have.
Yeah. Yes, Steve. Jenny.
Yes. The temporary appropriations I have to submit to the county auditor by the 31st. I sent all of you a copy of these over the weekend, and I gave you a copy tonight. These are temporary appropriations, and I have every intention to do like a work session after the holidays because it's too nuts right now. And that way we can go over these and review them. But I am just asking if you have any questions of what I did send you. Okay, then I'm gonna ask if you will make a resolution, which would be 121824-1 to submit these then, please.
Motion, we approve resolution 12182401 to approve the temporary resolution, temporary appropriation.
Second that.
Thank you.
This time, we'll make a motion to enter executive session pursuant to RC 121.22G3 for conference with an attorney for the board concerning disputes involving the board that are the subject of pending court action.
That was 12121
121.22G3.
I'm sorry. G3, okay.
Well,
I'm still writing, sorry. Did I get a second on that?
Yeah, I
You're in
did.
a second, sorry. I was trying to write all that down. Okay, Mr. Virginski?
Yes.
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Shelton?
yes.
Or just a reminder, I will mute the audio, but keep the video up and running. the audio. We should be on.
This time we'll adjourn, we'll make a motion, we adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mr. Kern.
Yes.
Mr. Shelton.
Yes. And no action. Community comments.
I gave Jenny 2 rental agreements and checks for 2 sports that have rented the gym. And there's a potential for Friday rental if Bright Acres cancels their parents' night out.
That mean you won't get to go out?
Oh, I don't do it. Everybody else works it. That's on me.
So how's the gym rental going? Is
Busy.
busy?
Yes.
Are we like booking out through January, February, March, like for basketball, softball?
I have the only one through March I have right now is the Adam Roy. The basketball that's running now, I wanted to see how it went before he committed any further into the year. But it'll be a conflict because he's been doing Thursdays, but the baseball already has Thursdays, so he'll have to switch to another day. But
Have you heard from the VA yet?
I have not.
Okay.
We had one this past Saturday. Christmas party, I think, was this past Saturday. So it's been busy.
Good.
Been busy.
Appreciate you taking care of
Yeah.
them. Motion to pay the bills?
We do have some correspondence.
Works fine.
Oh. Department of Job and Family Services.
We have to pay him money, got unemployment on it.
This was our summer employee, correct?
Yes. Seasonal.
Seasonal.
I didn't sure.
I tried not to, but
On a seasonal, we have to. It was a seasonal position.
I tried. Trust me, I tried. Lack of work is a reason that we let him go, and lack of work is a reason that we give unemployment. Think about that next time we do
Or
it.
just part of it, right?
How long does this go?
I don't remember.
Is it on there?
It probably is, yeah.
So
I
even
mean, the
if you
paperwork that
advertise-
it filled out is not there. That's just saying that they're
Yes, it
giving it
doesn't
to me.
matter.
Oh, okay.
even though you advertise as seasonal, knowing the work is going to end.
Yes, it's still classified.
If you want to, go for it, because I've done that in the past with a legitimate argument and I lost.
I've won and I've lost, but
I mean, I fought hard for one of them because
No, we're paying, that's total, we're paying.
that person quit.
I got rid
Well,
of
we're only
somebody
paying
more
part
than
of
that.
that. If you look, so he's
Yeah,
he's
give him
applied to
unemployment.
vote.
Yeah.
So he's
so
also.
he goes.
Oh,
So you can see our portion, our percentage is much lower than the
Oh,
other.
yeah, they're paying 83%, we're paying 16.
So we're paying.
But
10.
still,
It's
it's,
still
Oh, yeah, it's still ridiculous.
it's, yeah.
Alright.
That's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
I don't know you're gonna get around that if we
No.
were to continue to do this.
Well, we've got 3 full-time employees now, so.
It should be.
So it really wouldn't have mattered how we worded that, if it was seasonal or part-time or even temporary help. It
You
still has
probably
the
would have
same
got us for
criteria.
more. Or if we would have not had these, would be my guess. That's a guess.
I have to look into all that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.